Okay, so this video is in response to people's requests to see how to make a Wakasashi. And I give a little bit of this is on another video that I have on basic sword making, but I want to go into more detail for specifically Wakasashis. If you make a Wakasashi, then you can make katanas, ninjatus, and almost any other curved weapon you want. So it's really the curve technique we're looking at for how to do that here. So what I have here is a blank. It's the beginning of a sword. It's got the thruster tip already built in and the blade already on. You can see how to do that in my other videos. But it doesn't have a back on it yet, so it's only one side. So that's what's different about this to start. What I'm going to put on the back instead is a much thinner piece. A piece that's just more square, really. And it's going to go on the back just as a slight buffer, because Wakasashis and most katanas and ninjatus only have one striking edge. You don't need the same kind of padding on the back as you are on the front. The blade is also what makes it look the way it does. So I'm just going to tape this onto the back here. So first I start with one piece on the back, just to keep this one piece in place. Try to make sure that it's really flat. It's really important, particularly with Wakasashis and katanas, to make sure they're really flat because of the striking surface. Since you're only using one edge, if they're not really flat, you really can get hit at the edge with the side of the weapon, and it really is not fun. So pulling this all the way down to the end, making sure that's very flat again. Taking one piece of duct tape here and just slapping it on the bottom there, flip it over, and then make sure you press that in there. Don't pull up too much, or else it's going to move. It's going to roll on you, and then it's not going to fit right. There you go. And then we're going to put one nice long piece along the whole length like that to secure that in. So that's just connecting. Make sure you're touching the bar there at fiberglass rod like that. Flip it over, and then bring it up and press it in like that. Kind of snug. You want it, not too tight, but definitely not loose. So there you go. Now you've got a Wakasashi blank, and you could make a bunch of these and then later cut them into shape. Now the trick with curved items, with curved weapons, really is to create a false curve. This obviously the fiberglass rod is not curved. I can't curve it. If I was using PVC, perhaps I could heat it and bend it, but PVC weapons are heavier. I don't recommend them at all. Bamboo is really the way to go, and you can get it curved with a little bit of bamboo bent and then tape that way, or find a nice piece that's already bent. It works really nicely. But if you're using fiberglass rod, or you just don't have any curved pieces, then you can create false curve, and that's what I do with almost all of my weapons, because I use fiberglass since I'm making a lot of them and they have to last a long time. You can take a risk with bamboo if it's your homemade weapon, because you may not be using it the way I am. In any case, to create that false curve, I'm just going to cut off the corners and then tessellate them to the back. So I come up here on the front curve, and I just start here right at the edge of where that thruster tip is. I don't want to cut the thruster tip, but I just cut in there, and I just cut off a nice, healthy curve of that until I get to the edge. I'm just going to take that edge right off like that. Now, I'm not going to throw this piece away. I'm going to save it, actually. I'm actually going to transpose it to the back of the weapon. And it might seem like a small thing to do, like why bother with that one little tiny piece moving it? It's not like it's going to matter that much, but it actually creates that false sense of curve, and it tricks the eye really, really well, because the cutout that you've just taken is the exact same shape as the front, and that tells the eye that you do have a true curve going on. So if you look at what I just did there, you can see that it really does start to look curved. And it gets even more extreme when you come down here to the bottom and you take off this corner edge here. And you have to be careful with the rod. You don't want to run into that, but you want to curve all the way to it as you come in. Now, usually with Wakasashis, they're balanced. They have a pretty long cross guard. So I usually do something like 7 to 8 inches of guard on these. A lot more than you would on a short sword, perhaps, because short swords traditionally have more blade than they do handle ratio. So with Wakasashis, they tend to be very, very balanced. So I'm going to go with this Wakasashi. I'm going to go with about 8 inches of handle there to give it a good balance. So I find my 8-inch mark. I just start right there, and then I'm going to come in with just starting really slightly at first, but then becoming quite severe and cutting all the way down, all the way to almost the pole right there. Take that chunk off, and once again I'm transpose it to the back, and it's going to hook onto the back there. Once again, tricking the eye into seeing a curve that is not in the bar but is in the foam, because the foam itself is curved at that point. If you have a bigger piece of foam in the front, you can also take off more of the edge and transport the edge to the center, but I find that just the ends is all you really need for this. So taping that down nice and strong there, this section is very decorative, so it is going to be a handle though. You're going to hold on to it, so you do want it to be sturdy enough that you're not, it's not going to wiggle on you. So that's why I'm making sure to tape it on really well, and not just barely attach it. Really get some nice good duct tape on there. There we go. Okay, so now I've got the pommel all fixed there, and I've got a curve going on. You can see that this looks just slight at first, but as you start to cut away the edge and you decorate it up, it's going to become quite severe, especially when I add a point that also curves. This curved point is going to also continue to trick my eye to see a backwards curve as I go along. So I'm going to go ahead and add this point on the way I've done in my other videos, just by doubling up tape like that, putting it right on the tip there, sticking it on, and then securing it with a wraparound. Not too tight, but just enough that it will stay put. So pushing that down, pressing on the tape there, and then going around the back, and flat, pressed like that, and there we go. Now we've got a point, and that makes that curve look even more severe now. Now you're really starting to see a curved weapon out of this. Alright, and the rest of the steps are what you'd expect by putting on side pieces to guard against the fiberglass rod hitting anybody. I have a new technique for that, which I'm going to show you in this video. It's different than the way I have in my other videos. I think it's a little bit safer, and so overall I think it's winning out. It makes the weapon a little bit heavier, but I think it's worth the trade for added security, particularly if you're making a lot of them. So what I have my split tape here, which you've seen in other videos, which is just a nice piece of duct tape and split down the middle to give me these smaller half-size pieces, which I then roll into a tube, like so. And those tubes then run along the fiberglass rod, like that. And then I take this. Now this is new. This is more what you'd find in normal blade foam. But this is much wider than what we used to use, which was this little skinny stuff. This is a full blade, and what I'm doing here is I'm taking that and I'm going to lay it right on top of that, of the bar, curving it slightly at the top, and making sure to get all the way up to the open cell foam up here, because it'll help secure the foam and keep it from flopping over when I stab. So I'm pressing that down there. I'm just continue doing this all the way down. Now, this is a full piece, a lot thicker than what I used to use, quite a bit, but I'm actually not going to leave it all on there. I'm taping it down, and then I'm going to cut it in half, flat. And by taping it down, I can get a nice even cut as I go. So that's what I've discovered as I do it. And you want to line this up with the back of the weapon. So you see I'm coming along and making that even with the back there. So getting this here, just more of these tubes is what we're looking for, all the way down. And then once I get that, I can kind of sandwich cut it. Like if you were making a sandwich, you can just, cutting two pieces of bread in half, or a piece of bread into two pieces, you're going to get a sandwich cut. And that's what you're going to see on this, which I think works a lot better than the old style of the little tiny pieces, which were lighter, but I don't think quite as safe as this design. Because if you flat blade somebody with this design, I think you find it is a lot softer. So, trimming the end there, just a cut like that, and then make sure you have a nice sharp razor blade to do your sandwich cut. And you're going to come along here, finding the end, and just cutting right along in there, and cutting it as you go. Now, this sandwich cut is really easy. Once you've taped it down, it doesn't move, so you get a nice even cut as you go. Trying to do this beforehand is actually not as useful. I find that, that the foam moves around a lot, and so it's actually just as easy to tape it down first and then come along and sandwich cut it. You can also adjust places where the foam seems a little bit too much. You also get a very even cut because you have a predetermined width that you're cutting in half, as opposed to cutting these little strips, which are sometimes can be different lengths. So there I go. There's my sandwich cut, right like that, and that's one side. Now I can flip it over and repeat that process by taping that down onto there. Obviously, same process, just making rolls and going on. The only thing you'll have to do after this is to cut the blade, which I've shown in my other videos of cutting along the edge at a slight angle to get your blade effect. Beyond that, there's little else to do for a Wakasashi Katana Ninja 2. other than your cross guard and your pommel. Now, cross guards are an interesting subject when it comes to wakasashis and katanas, because traditionally they have a round guard, and that's sometimes seems to be a challenge for people. Very easy, actually. You just cut out a piece of blue foam and cut a slot in it, and then fit it right on. I don't actually put round guards on many of my wakasashis and katanas, and that's because I have to pack them in large numbers. You know, I have hundreds and hundreds of swords that I pack into the trailer, and so they all have to get, you know, sandwiched in there. And when you're dealing with that kind of numbers of weapons being packed and stored, round guards don't do well in that situation. They tend to get crushed and smashed, and they don't weather well. So if you're making your own sword, by all means, you know, make a nice round guard and you know, make it as decorative as you like. For the swords I'm making, I tend to just make a very slight suggestion of a round guard and then leave it at that. Also, because my swords double as many other types of swords. They're not always wakasashis. Sometimes they're sabers, sometimes they're scimitars, so I want them to be a little bit more neutral as a prop than something that is going to look always like a wakasashi or katana. Also, why I don't do the traditional Chinese or Japanese cross pattern on the handle all the time. Sometimes I leave it just brown, so it'll look like a lot of different weapons. So there we go. We've gotten both sides done there. I'm going to come along and make the blade now, just by coming in at a slight angle and cutting off an edge, right like that. And then as I get down to where the handle's going to start, I'm just going to come out and away. Same thing on the other side. Starting down here where the handle is, coming up, and just a slight cut just to give it an edge. That really does soften up the hit, though, so that you don't it doesn't feel so hard when you hit with it, though. So there, I've cut that edge in there now, and now I've got a nice soft edge. To finish, you can round off this handle. These square handles are a bit large, especially for a child, so you might want to come in here and just make it a little bit skinnier. Just make sure you don't ruin your curve. It also helps to take off the corners like you did as if it was a blade, like that and like this. Taking off those edges really helps the hand to feel much more comfortable. One disadvantage of this new design with these side guards is that these are a lot wider, so it takes up more of your hand. It does feel a little more solid in the hand, and you don't feel the bar in there, which is good, but you do have to be careful that you compensate for the width of this by taking off some of this so that you end up with a nice, good feel in the hand. That's pretty much ready to be finished off. I could take some of this square pieces and just put them on the ends, block them up, and do a knockout pommel on the end like that, like I would for any kind of sword. I can take this round piece if I wanted to and put it on the end like this, and then push it on up all the way to there, and then you'd end up with a cross guard. This one looks like it's going to be a bit small, but I'll give it a shot just to see the process of it. Yeah, that'll work. You do want to put the sides on first, because then it helps to hold the sides on. There you go. So that you could do a round guard that way if you wanted to. Like I said, I don't really do round guards on mine because I like them to be a little bit more neutral, but if you are looking for a round guard, that's a good way to do it. And then you go ahead and use your Gorilla Tape and just fold it on over there. Just to give you a sample of how to do that. Take a piece like that and just come along right in here, starting in the front, hit that flat over the top and down the back like that, and then just continue to do that on both sides. You don't need to do all of that Gorilla Tape unless you want it to be a really, really rigid guard. Duct tape would probably be fine once you've gotten a little gorilla going on like that. And you're pretty much done. You can see, just finish the knockout and then decorate your blade. I don't actually do the folded types of samurai hilts when I do mine. That's a lot of work. You can do it if you're making a specialty weapon, but I find it's much easier to just put white down and then black on top of that and cut out squares all the way down, and you end up with a nice triangle pattern, and then it doesn't peel off or unfold or unroll. And that's about it.